Welcome, friends, for the sixth session where we actually go forward and discuss file security with permissions and some other topics as well. So let us get started with security by file permissions. Now, as we understood that everything inside a Linux environment, in a Linux machine or a server, everything will be treated as a file. Sometimes it can be a regular file, sometimes it can be a link file or a device file or something. But to manage everything or to work with everything, we do have to maintain something which is called a permission. Now, how does that permission actually works? Permission is something which gives you an authority or a permission to perform some specific task. What are the specific tasks? The tasks are very, very specific, like read, write, and execute, right? So let us go forward and see how does that actually works. Now, in a Linux environment, there are three types of users possible. One, which is called a user or the creator, or in the Linux language, we call it a owner. That means if I have created a file, for that particular file, I am the user or I am the owner. Now, along with me, there will be somebody also having a same kind of permissions or privileges, and the collection of user based on some constraint will be calling it a group. So, for example, your class where all the users do have a same kind of permission, you belong to a single group. What is the advantage of creating a group? If I have to give a permission for a specific file, either I can give it to 50 users of your class individually, or I can actually give the permission on the group. So everybody inside that group gets the permission. The third factor, the third set is where I'm the owner and I belong to a group, and anybody apart from that will be called others. So say, for example, I'm a user root and I belongs to a group called administrator, and inside that group there are also somebody who do have almost same kind of permissions like me. Together we form a group, and now there is a new user comes which is called BVRIT, and that particular user will be categorized inside others. Now, if I have to give a permission for a user for a read or write for a execute, I have to go forward and mention either 1 to give the permission or 0 not to give the permission. So now, say for example, I have to go forward and give only read permission for a user. I'll actually go forward and mention 1, 0, 0. That means only read permissions, 1 for the read, 0 that means no write, and 0 means no execute. If I mention that in a binary format, I'll be getting 100, which will be getting translated into decimal as 4. Similarly, if I have to go forward and for a user, if I have to go forward and give a permission called only for read and only for write, then I have to give 1, 1, and for execute, I'll mention 0. So into binary, that will turn into 1, 1, and 0. Into decimal, that will turn at 6. Now, if I have to go forward and mention read, write, and execute all the permissions, I have to actually go forward and say 1, 1, 1, which will turn into decimal as 7. So for a user, if I have to give a permission for read, write, and execute, I'll go forward and mention 7 because it's 1, 1, 1 for read, write, and execute. Now, similarly, for a single particular file, there will be 3 set of permissions as we have discussed, for a user, for a group, and as well as for others. Now, to do that and to figure it out, let's see how do you go forward and do that. Let us go forward and watch out the demo for that. Now, I have a folder created already, which is called folder. And inside that, I have got a file called file1.txt. Now, if I simply go forward and say ls, it will not actually be listing out the permissions. If I wanted to know the permissions in detail, I'll go forward and write down a long list, which comes as a -l as an option. The moment I hit enter, what I actually gonna see that the first 3 the first option will be obviously mentioning for the directory or the file. If it's a directory, D will be mentioned here, or if it's a file, a hyphen will be mentioned. Then followed by, I have to read the permissions in a multiple of 3. So 1, 2, 3 goes for the user or the owner. The second 3 goes for the group, and the last 3 goes for the others, any other user which is not a owner and not part of the owner group as well. So now I can see that the owner can read and write, but it cannot execute the option. But if at all the group can read, but they cannot write, they cannot execute. Any other user, they can only read, they cannot write, and they cannot perform any other execute options as well. So what is the first thing I'm gonna do over here is I'm gonna go forward and try changing this permission. And to change up those permission, what I have to do is I have to learn a command which is called chmod. Chmod is a command which will be changing the permission mode for a file, stands for change mode, which comes up with the option, and then I can also go forward and set a mode for the file, and then I have to mention the name of the file. Now, for example, to make a file readable and writable by the group and the others, and no permission for the owner, I have to actually go forward and write down chmod. The first group goes as 0 because no read, write, execute for the owner. Read and write for the group, and then once again read and write for the others. Now, another example goes over here. If I wanted to allow everybody to read, write, and execute a specific file, what I'm gonna do is I have to give read, write, execute for the owner, read, write, execute for the group, and read, write, execute for others. So it goes at 777 for the particular file. Let's watch out a demo. Now, say for example, I wanted to go forward and set read, write, execute for my owner. So what I have to go forward and do is I have to go forward and say chmod 7, and then already I can see there is a read option available. So that goes as 100, which means 4. And for others also, it's read and no write, no execute permission. So it's 100, once again turned into 4. And then on which I wanted to apply that? I wanted to apply that on file 1. So once I hit enter, and again, if I go forward and have a long list, I can see that yes, this particular file now has got read, write, execute. Last time it has not had a execute option. Now it has got an execute permission as well. However, the group and the others remains as same. It has got only read permission for the group and as well as a read permission for the other users. Now what I would like to do is I would like to change this file 1 permission that as a owner, only I'll have the permission. Nobody else will have any other permission. So what I have to do in short is I have to take out the read and this particular read from the group and the other users. So to do that, what I should do? So actually this will turn into 0 and 0. So for that I have to say chmod 700, which is actually taking out all the permissions, and then I'll go forward and say file1.txt. Now again, if I go forward and list out a long list, I'll see that yes, now as well the read permissions have been taken out from the other users. How does that actually works? To understand that, I already have another user created which is not part of the root group, right? So let's go forward and test it. How do I first of all change to another user connection, and from that connection how do I actually go forward and figure out how does that actually works. Now considering that I don't have a read permission as well, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say switch user, and then I'll be writing a new username which is not a root and as well not a part of the root group as well, and I'll hit a enter option over here. Now I'm in the same folder location but with a different user. Now you can see that from a root user, I've got changed to a user called Nilatri. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to read that file which says file1.txt, and I'll see that yes, there is no permission given to this particular file. As a new user, I will not be able to read anything on that. Now let us go back once again to root option and try to figure out if I give the read permission, what is the difference comes here. So I'll go forward and say root. Now as I'm changing to a super user, I am expected to enter my password once again, and once again I have given my password. Now I would like to give the read permission for the other user but no permission for the group. So what I should write, chmod 7 means all permission for the owner, no permission for the group, and 4 means only read permission for the other user, and I would like to apply that one on my file 1. Now, once that is done, the permission has been given. Now again, I would like to change to my user Niladri, and now this time I'd like to read the file 1. Now last time what you have got? Last time you have got permission denied for file 1, but this time with the Niladri user, you are able to read out the file. Can I as well write something in the file? Let's see. So I'll go forward and try to concatenate something in the file 1. And again, I'll get a same option called permission denied. Why it's so? Because I only do, as a user Niladri, I only do have a permission to read, not to write. So let us go forward and change to root once again and give out the permission for the user. So I'll say so root, and then I'll try getting back to my new location. And this time, what I'll do is I'll go forward and say 7. That means all permission for me. 0, no permission for the group, and write permission for the other. So now the user will have read and write, both the options. And on which I wanted to apply that? I wanted to apply that on file 1. So let's go forward and say file1.txt. And now let us again change to the user Niladri. And then this time I would like to again go forward and say I would like to append some content or write some content in file 1. And yes, bingo, this time I have an option, right? So I'll say I have got the right permission. And I'll end it with a control Z. So now it's done. Once again, what I'm gonna do is now as well have a read permission. So I'll try to read the file and I'll see that yes, I have actually successfully appended the line, because as I right now do have a read and write permission both. Right, so this is pretty much all about chmod command. You can try out various other options from the course manual where multiple other questions will be given. Well, now the next command comes as change group. How do I change a group for a file? Now, as I already mentioned, that group is something where the owner actually belongs to. And if I wanted to change that, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a command called chgrp. That stands for change group. And then I have to go forward and mention the name of the new group. And then I have to go forward and mention the file for which I wanted to change up the group. So let's go forward and watch out a demo for that. Let's see how does that actually works. Till now I'm into user Niladri, so I have to actually go forward and shift it back to root. And again, I'll enter my password as I'm changing to a super user. Now what I'm gonna do is basically I have to go forward and find out what is the group as now mentioned for the file called file 1. Now I can see that the group for that particular file is root. What I'll try to do is I'll try to change that particular group to a group called Niladri. So what I'm gonna do is over here, chgrp, and then I have to go forward and mention the name of the group and for which file I am changing that one. Now once the command is executed, again you can go forward and see, and now you'll see that the group from root is actually getting changed to Niladri, right? So that's how I can go forward and directly change up a group permission for a particular file or for a long set of a file. If I wanted to do it for any number of files, actually I have to go forward and set an option which is called -r. So that's basically a command which is for change group. That's all about the file permissions. Now they have got a few questions over here. You can actually pause the video and go forward and try answering all these commands over here. Well, friends, the next set of commands or next set of utilities what we do have, it comes under the process utilities. What is a process and how does the process utility works for that? To understand that, we have to actually go forward and understand what is a process. Now, in computing, a process is nothing but an instance of a computer program which is right now under execution. Computer program can be actually in two states. One, it is just staying in the hard disk but not running. If at all I run the program, it will be called as a process. What does a process actually contains? The process actually contains the code and the activity of it. Activity means the data or in which state the process is actually persisting, all this option. Now, it depends on the operating system that the process will be considered as a single process or a process is allowed to run by multiple users at a same point of time, like a multi-thread. Generally, a process can be created when it's called a new state, and when the process is actually brought to a hard on your buffer on the RAM, then the process is actually called ready, and it's actually get ready to be started. When the process is running, or that means it's manipulating some data or performing some operation, so that particular time the process will be calling as running. And then when from a running state, if I try to stop that particular process, or when the process completes, it will go to terminated state. In middle, if at all the process is actually waiting to get a file access or to get a hardware access, the process will not be performing anything, it just be waiting, and that particular time the process will be called as a waiting state. So there are total of 5 states what we do have, what is called new, ready, running, waiting, and at the last terminated, right? We'll see how do you get to understand that which process is at which state. We have commands to understand that. Now, every process is uniquely identified in any operating system, and in a Linux-like environment, we call it a process ID. So process ID is nothing but a unique number which is given to a process to get it uniquely identified. In general, the process ID is actually an integer number, right? So what is the use of a process ID apart from identifying the process uniquely? Well, using the process ID, you can actually go forward and perform multiple operations on the process, like stopping a process, restarting a process, or terminating a process, scheduling a process, or multiple other options. Now, in order to do that, we have got multiple utilities or the commands under process, which is we called process utilities, and there are total of 4. So what are those 4? First of all, we have got a utility called PS, or the process. Then we have got a process status. Then we have the second command, which is called kill. Then we have got another command called add, and then finally another command called top. Now, one after another, we're going to review all these things, but we'll be starting with the first one called PS. Now, what does a PS do? PS will go forward and list all the running processes. Sometimes, if I want little more detail of that, I'll be going forward and finding it out a process with much more details with an option called -f. And now, if I wanted to represent a process with the parent process, then I'll be representing that one with an option called -e. Now, what do you mean by a normal process when I have to go forward and figure out like how does actually a process becomes? Now, a process can actually be created by a user or by a system, or a process also can be created by another process. So now say, for example, we have a process right now available where I do have called it, say for example, process P1. And now process P1 is actually creating another process over here by the name of process P2. How do I represent these two processes now? The process which is creating another process will be known as the parent process. And the process got created by another process will be known as the child process, or C. Now, here if I wanted to figure out how does a process actually works out over here, I will be going forward and finding it out an option to see which process has got which process, or which process actually has got which process as a parent process. Now to do that, I have got an option which is called -e. Now let's see how do you actually go forward and do that. Now let's get back to our console where I'll be starting up a new system. make sure that you are working as a root over here, because otherwise you may not be able to list out all the processes running in the system. Now the first option goes as PS. The moment I go forward and hit enter, I'll see that it's actually listing all the process ID, what is the name of the program, what is the duration it's running actually, and by which command the command is actually running, right? So that gives you a 4 option over here. The process ID, where exactly the process is running. It says it's running in the terminal. What is the duration of the process, and by which command or by which program actually the process has been started. If I want a little more detail over here, I'll be getting all the processes, where you can see that the PS gives you a little shorter list, and this one gives you a little longer list, which actually gives you little more extra list of processes. Means all the processes not only running by you as a user, or rather running by all the users or by the system as well, right? So now, so that's our 2 options. One is PS and PS-A. Now, if I want go forward and say PS-F, it will actually give me some more set of options over here. What are those options? The first says who is the user has starting this process. What is the process ID of the process? What is the process ID of the parent process? And then apart from that, the rest of the options are once again same over here, which says the start time, or from which location is actually getting started, or what is the duration of that, and then finally by which command you are actually getting it started. Now, if I don't want all these details, and if I only want the process and the process parent, I can actually go forward and set it out saying that process-E, where actually I can go forward and say, okay, this is my parent process ID, and this is the command what I do have along with that, right? So here we have got a total of 4 options. Once you can run only the PS, which gives you a process started by you, or A, all the processes, or I can go forward and say a little more detail with the process ID and everything, and then finally only the process along with the process ID. So that's the first command what we have in the list, which is said the process ID, listing of all the process. The next command will help you to terminate any of the process ID. How you can do that? You can actually go forward and say that to kill a process by a process ID, you have to go forward and write a command called kill, and then mention the ID of the process. Now, if I don't know what is the process ID of that particular process, but I know what is the program to start that particular process. So to terminate a process by the program name, I'll write down kill -s, because I want this to be considered as a string, and I'll be writing it as a music player, for example. Now, if I would like to kill a particular process with a very much mandatorily, or I wanted to terminate it immediately, I'll be mentioning an option called -9. This -9 has got a significance. This -9 is nothing but a run level, where we study, when we study run levels, we'll actually get into that option, and then with the help of that, I can actually terminate a process as well. Let us go forward and see a watch out a demo for that. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna hit PS, and I'll be getting the process IDs of multiple process over here, and then I would like to close one process which is called 10157. So to do that, what I have to do, I have to go forward and say first of all the command kill, and then the ID of the process 10157. The moment I hit enter, the process will be actually been killed. So that's the way how does it actually works. If I wanted to kill this particular process called SU, where I'm not sure about the process ID, but I know what is the command is actually running behind. So I'll be going forward and say kill and -s, and I'll write down SU. The moment I hit enter, it says that it's a invalid signal because the process has already been terminated over here. So that's pretty much all about the kill command. It's very rare situation where we wanted to go forward and terminate a process so forcefully. It's not a real Linux priority here. Well, the second command what we had as it's called at, which is used to schedule a particular job. Now, here we don't really gonna watch out a demo for that, because right now we don't have anything where we can actually go forward and create a real process. However, this is basically used for the administrative purposes, where you wanted to take a backup or you wanted to delete all the files at the end of the day when all your users logs off. So those are the situations where you actually go forward and schedule a particular command. Right. Moving further, we have got another command which is called top. Now this is also a situation where it's pretty much similar to the PS, but the basic difference between PS and top is top provides an ongoing look at the process activity in real time. So it's almost like a task manager, what we see you in the Windows environment. It displays a listing of all the CPU processes what are running on your system, and also you can go forward and make multiple changes to the process. Like either you can go forward and change the process priority or something like that in short. So let's see how does a top command works. Top does not come with any other alternative, so it's just a top. The moment you hit enter, it actually will give you the options of the running processes right now in the system. Now, as you can observe that the options are actually getting changed over here, because it only means that it's a very real-time observation, right? So it's exactly like your task manager in your Windows environment. Right. Now, how do I come out of that? Once again, I press Control Z and I come out of this. So whenever we try to come out of any of the existing prompt or running prompt in Linux, we always go forward and say Control Z. That works. Well, now we have got a few more questions based on the recent discussions. You can actually go forward and pause this video and try answering that. And whenever you meet your instructor in the classroom, you can actually go forward and clarify your doubts. Well, friends, so thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to this so that you can keep on getting the most recent discussions and updates into the channel, and have a very happy learning. In the next session, we'll go forward and discuss up the disk utilities, whatever will be used to manage or do some operations on your disk or the hard disk or the attached disk what you have. Thank you.